Families are complex systems. My great-grandparents on both sides of the family raised their children in the same small North Carolina town. My grandparents on both sides also raised their kids in Rayford, North Carolina, and my parents raised my sister and I there as well. The more I learn about my family, the more I learn that my assumptions are just assumptions. For example, when my great-grandfather on my father's side lived to be over 100 years old, I remarked about our good genes only to discover that he wasn't my biological great-grandfather. Also, my dad has his mother's last name because my dad's father, my grandfather, was married to someone who wasn't my grandmother. Stories about heritage usually didn't get passed down on either side of the family. On my mother's side, we called my great-grandmother Mama or Mama Daisy for clarity. I knew her in her 70s, 80s, and 90s, but I still don't know much about her life. She was born in 1900, and I remember asking her if she knew anyone who was a slave or if there were any white people in our family. For both questions, the answer was no, and I found that curious. Are there any times where you notice things like, do you notice anytime you would say either about yourself or about me that's like doing something that's like our parents would do, like acting like them, or do you ever notice that about yourself?
I used to be I used to be a person who was out stop of correcting people in their language and how they pronunciated words and saying the right things. I used to be bad about that too.
Right.
For you, I think that you have a lot of ways like that. It's hard to just say what, but it's just a lot of different things that you do and you say mimic him in a way without you even probably realizing that it's like him.
Mm.
Sometimes you sound like him.
Let me get your take on how you perceive their personalities, Mom and Dad. How would you assess how they were as people?
Daddy was reserved to himself a lot. He did things basically on his own, mostly privately. He interacted very little. I guess very little with people on a more personal level. Work was different because he was around people a lot. But as far as more personal level, it was to a minimum. Mom was like, I was out with somebody doing something somewhere. Never met a stranger. Just talk to everybody.
Right.
So I guess if you would just say Dad was more introverted, Mom was more extroverted.
Yeah. Our grandparents.
Oh, wow. The grand. All right. Well, Daddy, Mama, Grandmama was, she was a mom.
Mm-hmm.
She did what she had to do. She said what she had to say, I think a lot of times, like, a lot of things that she would want to say, she probably wouldn't say because, being children, it wouldn't be really directed towards us. She would tell our parents more than anything.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas on Mama's side, she spoke whatever she wanted to say. It was to you.
Right.
If you were out here doing something you had no business, she had no problem putting her opinion out to you. Well, Granddaddy was a person who fun, liked to have a good time, interacting with people. He never met a stranger. He was out there.
Mm-hmm.
That was like Mom. Mom was more like him.
Yeah.
More out there, more outspoken, more outgoing, doing something all the time.
Right. I remember he was joking all the time, right? He made all kind of jokes. He was always laughing.
Yes. I feel that's me too. I can feel I'm like that. I like that part of me. But that's the part I feel as though, even with Mom and through me, I feel as though I got that too.
Mm-hmm.
I still do that today.
Right.
Hey. What's out of class? I sure am. I thought that's something. Tell what's come down here and help them on this. And this is not getting here. Yeah. You're still growing, Boris. Yes, you are. You got something going for you. Because look at, okay, now look at you. I ain't never had to look up at you like this. Boy, out of class, I love you here. Okay, go see the rest of them and get ready for them.
So now let's go one step further and let's go into the great-grandparents. We only knew one. Okay.
We knew more than one, but I don't think we had more interaction but with one.
Well, but Grandma Hattie went to Silver Grove, so she went to church with us, yeah? Is that true?
That was not your great-grandma.
Huh?
Grandma Maddie. Grandma Maddie was your great-grandma.
Maddie, sorry. Maddie, Hattie, okay. Yeah. I remember going to her house because she lived, less than, a 5-minute walk from Ma's house.
2 minutes.
Not even. I don't think it was 2 minutes.
Across the street and the house away.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I do remember going to her house. I remember being confused about the whole. Yeah, I remember being very confused about how she was my great grandmother and like that whole thing. I didn't understand that till much later in life.
We had that missing link with our granddaddy because he died when we were so young. Well, he died when we were like 1.
Yeah.
Or almost 1. And he never even really thought I knew I was even coming.
Yeah.
And it was like the missing link.
Right.
Within our lives. So we knew of them and we would visit them. But it wasn't nothing like when we would go visit Mama Daisy, who was our mother's grandmother.
Right.
So there she was, I feel as though, she was always, I don't know how to explain it, but I remember one time she wanted me to learn how to crochet.
Huh.
She was teaching me how to crochet, but I didn't want to know how to crochet. I just didn't think that I would, and that, that's not me.
Mm-hmm.
As a person who crochets, but today I sit there and I was like, I wish I could crochet.
Mm.
I wish I could sit there. I wish she was here so now she could teach me how to crochet.
Yeah.
And she would always do, she would always try to spoil us the best way she could. And because it was so many great grands that she had.
Yeah.
And she was so much older. I feel as though if she could just do for us all that she could do, whatever for every last one of us, she would have done it.
Mm-hmm.
There were so many of us. So.
Yeah. Everybody got socks for Christmas, but everybody got something.
Yeah, so it was like, it was just hard because every time when we would go see her, you go visit her for a little while and you would talk with her, she would tell us stories or whatever, but we had to go because it'd be so hot.
Mm. Oh, right. Because she was always cold, right?
Yeah.
But I don't feel. I'm just thinking I can remember like having conversation with her, but I don't really feel like I learned much about her growing up.
Yeah.
Like who, like her life, like I don't know if you were there, if you remember asking her if she ever knew anybody who was a slave.
No. I just always wondered.
Right.
Because she never really talked about, her past.
Right.
To me, it was, and then when I would ask others, they were like, they don't talk about that, something like that. And I was like, okay.
One of them, Ed, her husband? Ed Digger?
Yeah.
Okay. And the other two?
For somebody's mom and daddy.
I know. I don't know if it was Mama's mom and daddy or Ed DeBerry's mom and daddy.
Yeah, I can't remember who they were. We really didn't know too much about grandmama's side.
Right.
Not
at all.
We know that he was like Boris Willis was. He did things for our hometown.
Right.
And he started a lot of stuff that was there, but it's like you find out later, like, what?
Yeah.
He did?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. To find out that your grandfather was a large contributor to the town that you grew up in, and not knowing any of that is kind of shocking.
You are, to me, you seem like a good proportion of both.
Mm.
Even now.
Mm-hmm.
Where for me, I think I'm more on daddy. Like you are a person who are a man of few words.
Mm-hmm.
To get whatever you want to get across, you'll say it in a few words. Whereas for me, I seem to be a little more wordy.
Mm-hmm.
Probably more or less like, yes, mama was like that. Because I felt as though it was more or less an explanation into what we are trying to get across. Where it seems like you can say what you need to say and you get it across.
Oh my gosh. Say something for us. Go stand. Talk, mister. Talk, boy. Oh no. And I believe that someday I'm gonna wake in the morning come. Someday I'm gonna be here when the Jesus and Jesus. Something Jesus. Sing it, baby. She is Sing this. Yes, Jesus loves me. Yes, Jesus loves me. Yes, Jesus loves me. For the Bible tells me so.
When I think of my mother, I always feel lucky. I felt fortunate to have had a mother who was as strong and supportive as she was. Inside the intense feelings of loss and grief was an overwhelming sense of gratitude for her life and for all that she had given me. Also, I was thankful for who she had allowed me to be without resistance. At times, I knew that it was a struggle for her to watch me grow in ways that were very different from her own life and her own experiences. Yet, I also felt like she was grooming me for something bigger than her life. In many ways, she resisted letting me integrate into small-town life. She didn't let me work until I was in college, and then only for the summer. She was adamant that I did not work on a farm. She was also someone who learned from me. I saw her taking parts of my life and incorporating them into hers. That was sort of a magical thing to witness. I saw her change her diet, exercise habits, identity, and her sense of being and belonging in the world. Mom did many things in life, but ultimately she was a teacher. She taught literacy and later worked with juvenile prisoners to help them get their GEDs. She was loud, funny, and liked to dance. She had dreams of owning her own business.
Yeah. Things come, things go.
Yep.
But then when she got into doing teaching, GED, helping people get their GED, it just seems like that's the natural thing for her. That's her. She's a teacher. That's her.
Yeah.
And she started doing it for the prison.
Yep.
That was her.
So she was teaching them to get their GEDs while they were in jail.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
But she did younger ones.
Right. When I would go to take ballet class, I would drop her ass, and then I would pick her up. But before, she was often not ready by the time I was done. So I remember going into those classrooms and pretending to be a teacher. Like pretending to write on the wall and pretending to lecture to like this empty classroom. And yeah, like I think that had a real, and for me, like to have become a professor, it's kind of mind-boggling that that as I grew up and had the urge to be more independent, I found myself looking more and more to my father. My mother was not impressed. It was her life's goal to make sure I did not act like my dad, which of course gave me leverage. I think I was a good kid, didn't get into trouble, mostly spent time with my mom, sister, and grandma, who we called Ma. Ma, M-U, was short for mother in the way that black people shorten words and make new ones. Ma was Siri before mobile personal assistants. And what Ma didn't know, her mother or her network of siblings did know. They seemed to know everything except history. We could simply say, "Hey Ma, how do I get this stain out of my shirt? Hey Ma, how do you bake a German chocolate cake? Hey Ma, What shoes look best with this outfit? My mom's laugh was louder than her siblings. It was how she stood out. But I wish she was quieter. I wish her voice wouldn't drown out everyone else. I would shrink into silence. I would stumble and mumble I don't knows. I would resist the urge to be seen in many situations. Hey ma, who am I? Hey ma, who will I grow up to be? Hey ma, I may not be much like you. Hey ma, why do they think being smart is bad? Hey ma, what if I don't want to stay in North Carolina? Hey ma, did I grow up too fast? Hey ma, what if I don't believe in God anymore?